Welcome back to the Deep Healing Project. My name's Dr. Nick Hyde. I'm with my brother, Dr. Jake Hyde. Good morning.
Hello, Nick. Good to be here today.
Yeah, now that we actually have a YouTube, I'm like a little bit self-conscious of the fact that not in my normal studio.
Yeah, if you're just listening to the podcast and you're not watching it, Nick's in the man cave right now.
No, this is the garage. It's like not one of those bougie garages that other people might have. It's from the house. It's cold. There's fighters on me, and I'm actually right next to the chicken coop, so we are going to hear that today, trying to reduce the noise. But
yeah, I think the rooster sound is getting filtered out pretty good. But Nick's got his gentleman's sweater on. He's in a lounger chair. He's in his garage. It's a man cave.
I just happened to find this probably giveaway chair somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's nice. It's got this like okay. And this might be the place I do pods. I don't know.
We'll see how this works out. Yeah, so we never put out videos before, so straight audio. So if you're one of our subscribers to the podcast channel, Podcast World, we do have that option now, in case you didn't know about that. So check it out on YouTube and check out Nick's glorious man cave.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is what happens when people are staying at our house and everything. So I don't, it's a problem when you record so early. It's like I will wreck everyone's life by this decision of recording if I'm recording in the house. But so what are we on today, Jake?
I have a fun idea. We can talk about, because the stuff the internet loves, simple life upgrade kind of ideas. And I was thinking swaps that you and I enjoy in our life that it's made a big impact, like minimal effort, minimal cost. Because a lot of like holistic lifestyle type stuff, people are like, that's expensive. I can't do that in my life. We're talking simple swaps, things you probably already do or have, but just modify it a little bit for an actual big impact. So the stuff that I'm thinking in my head, I think makes a big difference, and it doesn't change your life or the cost of your life that much. What do you think?
I'm in.
All right. Since I just sprung this on you, what comes to mind for you with this idea of just like simple swaps in your routines, in your lifestyle?
Well, certainly food items. I'm thinking some cleaning items or some like, yeah. I'm thinking, fabrics, clothing fabrics.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. That's kind of where I'm at too.
Yeah, let's go.
We're on the right track. All right. Let's start with something super basic. Salt. So a lot of people use what we call like table salt. Forever I cooked with kosher salt, which is like, I would say, an upgrade from your iodinized kind of table salt. However, and I like kosher salt because I like to cook, and like pinching really coarse grained kosher salt is nice for cooking reasons, but still haven't used that in years, although I still have nice memories of it. We're straight real type salts. So real type salts meaning like Celtic sea salt or Baja Gold or Himalayan pink salt or what's called real salt on like Amazon, like Redmond's or something like that. You familiar?
I love all of those.
What do you use, Nick?
Well, I'd say Celtic is actually my favorite, but partly because of they've got the ratios pretty good, and it's been used for a long time with health people and food people and everything.
Mm-hmm. Plus, we're of Irish descent.
Right. So I really like Celtic sea salt, but then some days we're there at the store and it's like whatever reason extra expensive. And
Yeah.
then, I'll get something of equivalence, usually pink Himalayan or, obviously Redmond's real salt is like taking over the country. I have a couple issues with Redmond's, maybe a little bit, but it's pulling
Talk,
hairs.
talk to me about it. Let's get into it.
Well, yeah, the sourcing, um, that part of the world, right? So they're getting it mainly from like the Great Salt Lake kind of areas.
Like Utah.
Yeah, like Utah.
Hmm.
And there's been some research to suggest that, there's lots of heavy metals in and around that region.
Hmm.
And the salt, probably there is some amount of that in the salt. Again, not like toxic levels, but if you're doing it
Well,
every day, at some point, and if you're just a person who's already somewhat toxic with metals,
yeah, which is
yeah.
probably more people than we're aware of. What about like with the sea salts? Do you worry about heavy metals in sea? Because ocean water is full of heavy metals.
Yeah, not to that extent. Um, not as much. Not as much.
Well, one of the things that you're going for is what you're looking for would be like ancient salt beds. So like pre-industry for sure.
Yeah.
And so what you're getting is a mineral blend that's going to be free of at least industrial kind of byproduct. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
why?
I do want to say this though, really quick. Even though I said that, I still use it a lot. Like I think that's what we have in my kitchen right now. I
Yeah,
do think it's a good salt,
yeah,
and
it
good
is good.
salt, as we're saying, is a huge upgrade.
Yeah, maybe something we can do on the show is when we release this, maybe we can link to some of these products we talk about on Amazon for convenience. The ones that are on Amazon, I'm sure a lot of these things will be. So people can check it out for themselves. All right. Why the upgrade? Well, it's because table salt contains very simple ingredient list, sodium chloride, and then the one that has iodine added into it has that as well. But what does like these real salts that we're talking about? What's the ingredient list in these, Nicholas?
Oh man, that could be up to 80, 90, 100 different kind of minerals
I
in
was
there.
hoping you'd start listing them. Yeah, no, Nick's right. Like
Vanadium.
70, the list I've seen like 70 to 90 something different trace minerals, which is really great, especially in the modern era where I would say the soil that our foods get, or that a lot of our foods grow in, is mineral deficient. Am I right?
Oh yeah.
And so used to have, I would say, more trace minerals in, say, just fruits, vegetables, things like that. However, not so much these days because of how we've treated the soil. But you can get some of these trace minerals back just by adding salt to your food, or some people to your water, which I actually have been doing a little bit of salt first thing in the morning, just to get them trace minerals going. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, yeah. This has been it, if you're a client of mine, you definitely hear me talking about this. I think a lot of people are dehydrated on the mineral side of dehydration. They might drink an okay amount of water, but they just don't have enough minerals, man.
Yeah. So just filtered water, we don't really have a reservoir in our body for plain old filtered water other than our bladder, meaning there's nowhere really in our body for that water to go other than our bladder. But water with minerals in it, and if you wanted extra points, like structured water, phase 4 water, the reservoir for that is in our cells, which is what actual hydration is.
Yeah. I worked with this guy, well, I shadowed him sometimes. Dr. Titus Chu. He's got one of the coolest names and doctor personas I've ever seen. And he used a bioelectrical impedance analyzer to see how hydrated people were.
I've heard of these. I've never got to play with one.
Yeah, he had. I was thinking about it. Afterwards. I was like, dude, I need to get one of those. I'm like, how much does that cost? He's like, oh, like $6,000. I'm like, I don't really care that much.
If someone would like to gift Dr. Nick one of those, he's open to it though.
Yeah. Definitely work that out. But yeah, hydration's important, man. And like as you're saying, real cellular hydration is important. That is an easy thing people can try, man.
Yeah, so I'm saying easy swap.
Totally.
We actually have filtered water from our home. We have a water filter, and I'll fill up a glass container and have a little bit of salt in that container. Not that you would ever taste it. It won't taste salty to you. If it does taste salty, you probably put too much in, frankly.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, your taste
yeah.
buds. I like to remind people of this. Like, people are kind of disconnected from themselves. Your taste is the neurofeedback mechanism that kind of lets you know what's up. So if you don't taste the salt at all, but you added salt in, you're probably depleted. If you're like, whoa, this is really salty, then your body's saying that's too much for me. But you might find somebody else in your home where that person's like, ooh, this tastes really good. I find that putting salt in the water actually does make it taste better, as salt does, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for cooking purposes, mostly salt makes things taste better, not salty. And the salt is like a main ingredient, like in French fries or something.
Yeah.
Normally what salt does is just bring out flavor. So like I made French press coffee this morning, a tiny pinch of salt in my coffee too, frankly. That's how I live, Nick. Yeah. My son likes a little bit of salt on the cookies. We make chocolate chip cookies. He likes a little salt on there. Fancy boy. But salt and chocolate is a nice combo. All right. That's enough on salt. Yeah. How about do you want to throw one out there? I got a list already in my head.
I'm gonna go with the clothing thing. You know, I think there's way too much toxic clothing out there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of research that suggests you don't want those touching your private parts. You really don't. Huge endocrine disruptors. What am I talking about? I'm talking about all the synthetic clothing items. It's pretty much all of the synthetic ones. So what's a real clothing item is, you know, you got cotton, you got wool, linen.
Nick's a big fan of the birthday suit.
Well, the boys in my house are, for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
What about things that say 100% cotton? Do you think you can trust it? Like, I bought some underpants and they are 100% cotton. Think that's pretty safe?
Well, I always have before, but now you're getting me suspicious.
No, I actually don't know. I haven't looked into this.
We're starting a new conspiracy.
I know. Well, because they can do that with food, right? Because if it's below a certain threshold for a processed food item, they don't have to list the ingredient.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if clothes manufacturing has similar loopholes. Write us in. Tell us what you think if you're an expert in this. We don't know. So yeah, 100% cotton, 100% wool, pretty safe for the most part.
Yeah, and you could just tell a difference. Like, I have these like socks that are synthetic materials, and then I have some wool socks and cotton socks, whatever. But the wool ones are like, they're like wool is like super powered.
It is
clothing item.
It is. It'll warm you up and cool you off, depending on the temperature outside. Yeah.
And it's like antimicrobial, you know, like you could wear those socks, probably never wash them, and they still are like clean somehow. Like wool cleans itself pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I do that. I'm saying one could potentially pull that off. And then linen is awesome. I mean, it's like an amazing. So I mean, all of those things are really amazing. Now, why do I not like synthetics? Because they're major endocrine disruptors, and a lot of them might even have these forever chemicals that are very hard to detox because they are forever. You know, they're
Hence the
very
name.
long
Yeah.
lasting. They will outlast you. So if you have them in you, you know.
All right. When you're looking for material blends and clothing you're buying, what materials that are normally listed are you trying to avoid?
Polyester is number
Mm-hmm.
one.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's always, there's a bunch of names. I didn't get ready for this, but there's a bunch of other like poly something blends. Radon is not, anyone that's not cotton, linen, or wool.
There you go.
Basically suspicious of.
Hemp.
Oh yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, but if it's something that's clearly like a crop,
Yeah.
cotton.
Yeah.
I guess like sheep are also kind of like a crop. But yeah, something you'd find on a farm, hemp. Yeah, if it looks like something you would say, like you're talking to a farmer and it's like, hey, what do you grow on your farm? And if that's an ingredient, you're probably safe.
Yeah, and just one last point on this. A lot of the swaps sometimes for healthcare are like more expensive, but the synthetic clothing is like the expensive one right now. Everyone wants to go get the Lululemon pants or whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm not that into trends right now. Clearly,
Yeah,
I don't really know.
we're not. We'd have to have a guest to talk about clothes for reals.
Yeah, all I know is like the pants that are expensive for men right now that I've seen and recently purchased are usually the synthetic ones. Now, I'm sure you can get some very expensive linen or, I don't shop all wool, I just have like some items that are wool, but that would probably get expensive as well.
Right, but cotton's not.
Yeah.
This is just I'm wearing a 100% cotton t-shirt. And it wasn't expensive. All right, next one. Ooh, a lot of goodies. Let's do light. So the simple swap is if you can do natural light, that's the swap. I always prefer natural light if possible. But then in my house, so this is the swap that we did, is we just bought like red lights for, they're pretty cheap lamps too, but all the bedrooms and the two like main living areas, living room and the family room, have these red lights that go on at night. And we don't use anything with like a blue light or any kind of neurotransmitter disrupting light sources. Besides, like we will maybe have a screen on, but also all of our tech switches to a blue light filter in the evening. So we're swapping light, not that technologically complicated and not expensive either.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've seen some people have really good results with that. Like, and I know that that's something we've talked about for you in the past, where you got your sleep hygiene is really important for you.
I've had struggles with sleeping in the past. Yeah, some of my health struggles for sure. So, and our 4-year-old, soon to be 5-year-old, actually, when this gets released, will be 5. Impossible for him to just sleep easily. That guy could power a city with his energy. And so, yeah, we do want to be mindful of things that disrupt the chemical messaging to his brain that it's dark and that it's time to prepare for rest. So the red lights are kind of cool. The ones we have, you can dim them to varying degrees, but at full capacity, it's enough for us to read. Definitely a kid's book is easy to read, but like even like a grown-up, smaller fonted book could still read if you wanted to. But it's also just enough to be able to go around to your house. You can tidy up, you can clean, like you can see, but you're not telling your brain that the sun's still out.
Yeah.
Simplest way to put it. So yeah, the red light thing has been a recent upgrade, I would say. I've been dragging my feet on it, thinking it'd be like expensive or technical to like train my wife on this stuff, and then no, the technology just kind of caught up. It's really easy, not expensive.
That's awesome. Okay, I think I got another one.
All right.
I want to go back to the kitchen, and I was thinking about sugars.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah. Great conversation.
Well, yeah, because you're talking about your son Henny, and I was thinking about my son Rafa, and he is a sugar sensitive person. Like just your normal white sugar. That gets him, man. It's like behavioral changing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
it is.
we've experimented. So sometimes you do these things out of necessity, but I think this was a larger conversation. If you go really way back in our podcasts, we talked to a guy named Justin Polgar who has Yes to Cacao brand of chocolate, and he opened me up to this idea of sweetening things with other stuff like lacuma and whatever. We don't really use that, but it's made a difference. So we do use turbinado sugar,
which is still a sugar that's going to have impact on like a glycemic index.
Yeah, it's real sugar, but it's raw. It's like unprocessed.
Yeah,
or lightly processed. And that seems to do a little bit better. So it's just like if you were growing your own sugar in the backyard, your sugar beets or whatever, then you're going to process it in your own kitchen. It would end up more like turbinado, and it's not a white color. It's like a yellowish, kind of color, like brownish color. So that's one, and then honey and molasses.
Sorghum.
We don't use sorghum, but
Well, I get shout out my father-in-law. He's got a sorghum guy. He's got a hookup, so we get these like big jars of it from him periodically. That when he gets his sorghum delivery. But sorghum is, I would say, when we get it in a syrup form, not unlike molasses, but not like blackstrap molasses. It looks maybe more the color of like a real maple syrup, which is another sweetener we use, like real organic.
Yeah, maple syrup's great.
Yeah, sorghum, it has a flavor to it. It kind of reminds me almost like it smells kind of like if you walk into a brewery.
Oh yeah.
Not the hoppy smells, but like I don't know, like
malty.
There's this, yeah, malty. So that one's pretty good. Now we're talking so far just real sugars, just natural forms of sugars. And what's better about them? Well, there's actually nutrients in these too. There's a lot of minerals in these sugars that we're mentioning. But there's also some non-sugary sweeteners that are actually pretty good for you. That used to not be true. If it was an artificial sweetener, like you used to see things be like, no artificial sweeteners in here. Why? Because those were really toxic.
Yeah, really bad.
But there's some artificial sweeteners that actually have like health benefits to them now. Like, all right, stevia, famous one, actually pretty healthy for you. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol that's actually really good for your like mouth health, like gum health. Monk fruit sugar is actually a good tasting sugar that doesn't actually raise your blood sugars. And that one like tastes pretty good. Whereas like if you have too much stevia in something, it tastes like bitter. If you have a little bit of stevia, it's fine. Too much, it's good bitter. I think erythritol does kind of a similar thing. And so for example, we baked cookies yesterday, my son and I, and part of the texture of a cookie is given to you by sugar.
Yeah.
So you can't just straight swap and expect to have like a nice texture of a cookie that you're expecting. But we do like half and half. So we did half monk fruit half raw sugar, and raw sugar is kind of a substitute for not exact substitute, but almost like a substitute for brown sugar. You know, some cookie recipes would be like half white sugar, half brown sugar. So it's like we did real sugar, monk fruit sugar, or monk fruit sweetener would be more technical, and then a little bit of dark maple syrup too to get more of that, the right flavor profiles.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not gonna like make him go nuts like store-bought cookies, or I mean, our boy gets treated. He likes to get treated.
It sounds
But yeah,
nice.
these homemade ones are much better. Like we could give it to him at the for a dessert after dinner, and he's not going to lose it. Like other kind of more processed sweet treats.
Yes. And I think, it's like, why are we talking about these swaps? I think each point on a health point is important. Like we talk about our kids because, there's like the craziness that comes with too much sugar. But on a different level, sugar is like one of the biggest enemies out there in the health space. You could talk about, you could talk about metabolic syndromes. Like probably most people have that. They have some problem with their metabolism. That's something we could talk hours and hours and hours on.
That's probably a full episode topic.
Yeah, but then even like, Alzheimer's, which is people calling diabetes type 3, it's very much a sugar problem as well. As people can have, genetic issues too, but it's very much a sugar problem. So having like tending towards real sugars when you're going to have something sugary and you want to enjoy, that's a good way of doing it, but it's still, not something you should overindulge in.
Yeah, it's like a recreational drug.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be a dietary staple, but it's like we're at a birthday party, or it's Christmas, or Thanksgiving, Easter's coming up. It's like I have a little sugar today. It's a party.
Yeah. Or or like, you make oatmeal or something that doesn't taste quite right without like a little bit of maple syrup in there or something, like that's okay, but we're not promoting doing it all the time. Yeah.
Well, especially for an adult, kids can handle more glucose. So I'm not saying like high fructose corn syrup. I'm saying glucose because they're trying to get bigger.
Yeah, they need lots of energy.
Yeah, they're trying to get larger. For most adults, myself included, I'm not trying to be bigger right now. Most adults are trying to get smaller. And so like glucose is just not, and even carbohydrate for that matter, isn't an essential nutrient. You don't need it. You can go without that. So yeah, it's about just a healthy relationship with it based on your goals. So some people that means like probably zero sugar. And for some people it means like moderate, time to time, enjoy life a little bit. All right. But yeah, these swaps, big upgrade, I would say. Huge upgrade.
Yeah.
Totally. It is more expensive. Sugar's pretty cheap. But if you don't use it that much, like the maple syrup we buy, either like Trader Joe's, Aldi's, or Costco, it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I got a sorghum guy. I got a hookup. I've never bought sorghum. So shout out Hank for that. But even like monk fruit sugar is not that expensive. It's definitely is compared to sugar, but we just don't use it that much, so it works. Yeah, I'd say automatic. Make that upgrade. All right, here's one. You've ever worn shoes before, Nick?
I am right now.
How about
what
that?
Do I need to know?
A big upgrade for me that I actually did during our hiatus, our like 4.5-year podcast hiatus, was buying barefoot-style or minimalist type of footwear, and big payoff for that. Real big.
Tell me the payoff. And actually, this is something that I do too, but we haven't actually talked about this on a show before.
I know. Well, part of my journey was like I was put on like prescription orthotics at a pretty young age, probably like 11, 12, that time period. And so I wore like these very expensive inserts in my shoes up till I was like 28, 29, probably, maybe even 30. Because in school, I don't know about you, we got like prescription stuff for like inserts because
Right.
there's companies that were trying to get us to buy like foot scanning equipment to sell, in our future clinics and things like that. But what I did was I started training my feet more, because what your arches aren't like some kind of cobblestone bridge over a creek that's like in concrete. The arches of your feet it's like laminated muscles. It's layers of muscle stacked on top of each other. And so if you say like I have flat feet, it's like saying you just have like no core muscles, for example. It's like I have a weak core. Well, you can train that and it can become more functioning. Most people, you can just train your feet to become better feet. And what my orthotics do, or shoes that have like arch support do, is give your feet muscles a day off, essentially. They don't have to work. So I guess the analogy would be like if you wore a back brace all the time, you give your core muscles no incentive to get stronger and offer more support because the job's being done already. So what would happen if you wore a back brace all the time? You just develop a weak core. And so I started doing that around 30, but then at like 36, this is maybe 4 years ago, maybe not even, but around this time, I bought my first pair of barefoot shoes. So no arch sports, almost like ballet slippers. Mm-hmm. And these were running shoes. You can get barefoot style, any type of shoe. And I would be someone who'd go for 1 or 2 runs a week, like 4 or 5 miles.
Yeah.
I got these out of the box, went for my first run, about a half mile down the road. I turned home. I was like, I got to go home. I can't run anymore. But what barefoot style shoes make you do is run a more biomechanically appropriate way versus like the modern running shoes allow you to heel strike. You have these big padded shoes and you can run anyway because the shoe kind of absorbs the stress for you. So I was running on like the balls of my feet, which is biomechanically sound, and it was just forcing my leg muscles, particularly like my calf muscles, to do a lot of work that they weren't trained to do. So I would say the first couple months was an adjustment period of my body adjusting to it. But here's something that's interesting. Forever, my entire adult life, I hadn't had shin splints since college basketball, but like if I touched my shins, they'd be tender. And I didn't have like heel pain, but if I pinched my Achilles heel, it would always be tender. Does that make sense? Oh, yeah. I had off and on, hip pain to knee pain, things like that. 3 or 4 months into barefoot shoes for walks or runs, shin pain gone. Achilles heel tenderness gone. Knee soreness gone. And all I did was just change the footwear.
Yeah. Well, your foot is more functionally stronger. I've found very few things that strength can't in some way fix. And even your foot getting stronger, your calves getting stronger, all that stuff. I experienced something similar. I was having foot pain that I just could not get rid of. And then I switched over to some barefoot shoes. Witten is my brand.
Yeah, because Wittens are super affordable.
They're very affordable. It's an Amazon brand, and so I got some of those, as well as just like I think when I first, actually, my first shoe wasn't that, but when I first started, it was like I'm just gonna be barefoot more of the day. So even at work, I was like
great idea.
Shoes and stuff, and just being in socks and stuff. But
outdoors barefoot as much as possible if you're in an appropriate place. Like, I know your kids are the same way, but kids like barefoot unless we're walking in a parking lot, grocery store, I guess school. But
Yeah.
barefoot as much as possible. You want your kids' feet to be strong, durable, adaptable. You don't want to put their little feetsies in little casts, basically.
Right.
Fun
Yeah.
story. I went this past weekend, went to a playground, was meeting one of my son's best friends. This playground they like to go to. So we went, and the dad, who I'm friends with too, shows up, and he's got a fresh new pair of some like barefoots, some Wittens. And I was like,
Nice.
nice, man. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to get this going. And I'm like, cool, dude. I love it. This is, sharing my
Yeah.
story, my testimony a little bit with him. And then another mom that's at the park, like, creeps up to it. She's like, you guys talking about barefoot shoes? And I was like, yeah. So we were getting into it, the three of us. And then her friends show up that she was meeting there, this couple. And they're both rocking the barefoot shoes too. And it's like, there's 5 adults just talking about them.
Oh
But
man, your parks are cooler than mine.
I mean, we're in East Nashville, dude. So cool here.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, very
yeah, it was fun. 5 adults, 1 newbie, but 4 experienced barefooters all talking about how game changing it
barefoot life.
is. So big upgrade, I would say. And you know what? They used to be ugly, like totally hideous.
Yeah, it did.
Now they're quite fashionable now. And if you want to spend some money, they can be very fashionable. I almost bought some barefoot like boots. The brand Zero.
Yeah. One of the first ones out there, I think.
Yeah, one of the first ones out there. You can get some really nice barefoot fashion. I don't spend money on clothes, so I don't do that. But you can. I almost did. Maybe I will this next year. Because I tell you what, I have nice boots that I'll wear in the winter time, and my feet don't like that anymore. They want the minimalist shoe. They want that feel.
Yeah. It's amazing how it changes, how it shifts, and you're like, what is this now? Like, this is so uncomfortable. Like, this is what you used to wear like 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I will say though, if I'm gonna go for like a long hike, I'll have a thicker sole, but I have 0 drop shoes to do that. So they're like, they give you the foot split. Witten's has some of those, but Ultra is another brand I've used. That's like, if I'm gonna go for like an 8-mile hike, and with a barefoot shoe, like over rocks and stuff like that, it's probably gonna get to me.
Yeah, but at the 3-mile mark, you start to be like, I need a break.
Yeah,
That's for me. When I wear these shoes on hikes, it's like about 3 miles. It's like, okay, I don't have hobbit feet.
Yeah,
I'm back.
Right. I don't want that much. Again, if you were just walking all the time, that'd probably be no problem. But
yeah, you'd probably be used to it. Cool. Well, I think we make a list of these things we mentioned, and maybe we can link some show notes. You guys can just check it out, so you don't have to hunt the internet yourself. And there's plenty more, so we can do a part 2 of this if you guys are enjoying it.
Yeah, these were meaningful things to us, and maybe you have some of your own meaningful things. You can write us. You can. It seems like it takes a little bit too much work, but even in the comment section of one of these places, please tell us what you think. We're not doing this just for whatever the algorithms out there. It's like, we genuinely want to know.
That's true. We'd love to hear from you guys. And yeah, well, maybe we'll include your things. Maybe there's stuff out there Nick and I haven't already heard about that could be really nice upgrade in your life, especially these simple ones. Because like, it'd be nice for us to buy like, infrared saunas for our homes and stuff too. We're not talking about that stuff. These advanced cold plunges and things. Like, we're talking about things that aren't really going to change your bank account really at all, but make a huge difference to your health. All right.
Well, peace and love. We'd love to earn your subscription and your support and all that stuff too. So if you do like us, please, that would be nice. Help us out. Like, subscribe, all those things. And in the meantime, be well, everybody. Love you.
Yeah. Love you guys.